The man just glanced at the milk carton in his hand and instantly thought of a way to escape. He just stepped on it and flattened it, and then unfolded the entire box. Then he used the spoon to pick out the inner wax film. Finally, while the guards weren't paying attention, he stuck the wax film on the password lock. In this way, they will leave fingerprints when entering the password by comparing the fingerprint positions, and then know which 4 buttons they are. Next, it's time to try the password. But how can he touch the combination lock? Although the prison has layers of prevention and control, but this can't stop it. The man squeezes the toilet paper into a ball and then smear it with toothpaste. He needs to make many such balls. Then he wraps them all with a wet tissue, and he got a big, sticky ball of paper. When the guard unlocked his handcuffs to let him eat, he quietly stuffed it into the lock of the small window. In this way, even if the other party locks the small window, he can push it open then he can easily touch the password lock. But to escape, this is far from enough. He also needs to meet 2 other conditions. First, he needs to understand the guard's movements to find the gap. Second, someone outside should be on standby. Although the prison seems to be tightly guarded, there is a fatal weakness, which is the confinement room, next to an unguarded fire garage. Then the man deliberately picked a fight so that the prison guards would lock him in the cell. Once inside, he carefully observed the personnel layout. He found that there were only 2 guards on duty, and they have the habit of going out to smoke. This just became the gap for him to escape. Through the iron mesh above, he could clearly hear from the rooftop the sound of the prison guards opening and closing the door. By this, he can calculate the time they spent smoking was about 7 minutes. Finally, he used the camera here to convey the time of the escape to his hacker friends. Everything was ready. It's time for the official action. After opening the combination lock, the man reversed the surveillance first to create the illusion that he was still in the cell to buy more time to escape. Then he used the ventilation duct and successfully reached the fire station. Then he changed his clothes and disguised himself as a firefighter. 2 prison guards were still smoking on the rooftop. Then it's time for his teammates to appear. The woman deliberately created an explosion to create an explosion to lure the fire department to respond. The man had already hidden under the car. At this time, everyone ran to put out the fire, and they didn't notice him. He successfully escaped in front of the prison guards, but he is not a criminal, but a security guard who is responsible for helping test the security of security personnel responsible for testing the safety. Every time, he would enter the prison as a criminal and find out the loopholes in it, thereby reducing the possibility of prisoners escaping. However, as soon as the man returned to the company, before he had time to rest, the intelligence agency came to him. They said a warden named them wanted him to test his private prison. Who are detained are some criminals that the government doesn't want to jail, and vicious criminals. But such institutions are often not subject to the law, nor official recognition, which is very dangerous. He might even die in there. The man didn't want to agree because he had never tested a private prison before. He didn't want to take the risk, but his boss said that the other side was willing to pay 3 times the salary. Faced with such temptation, he had to agree, but he didn't know that it would be the beginning of his nightmare. His teammate brought him a new identity as usual, and then told him the evacuation code. Then they injected a micro tracker into his hand. Finally, he walked down the street as planned to wait for arrest, but he didn't expect the other party to be so rude. They started scanning his whole body as soon as he got on. They quickly found the tracker. The next second, they took it out with a knife. Then they forcibly injected a sedative. Seeing the man's whereabouts lost, his teammates were instantly confused. This was completely different from the original plan. When he woke up again, he was in a glass cell in such a public and transparent environment. Prisoners' bathroom activities can be seen clearly. There are countless 360-degree mobile cameras in front of him. Even the number of his nasal hairs can be seen clearly. There is no privacy at all. What's more, these cells are suspended in the air. The traditional method of digging tunnels won't work. The guards here are also several times more than in other prisons. Now, he can't escape. The man couldn't take it anymore. It's completely different from what was written in the plan. So when he saw the warden, he immediately said the evacuation code, asking him to send him back quickly. Unexpectedly, the other party didn't know the code at all and said that if you want to use a string of numbers to let you leave, it's just a dream. The other's name wasn't Numer either. Could it be that he was in the wrong prison? Before he could ask clearly, he was sent to the cell again. His teammates on the other side couldn't find his whereabouts. All his actions, here, the warden will personally supervise. It seems that he knows the man's reputation as a master. As a new inmate in the prison, he was inevitably targeted by the old inmates. Just as they were about to fight, a man named Arnold appeared. The gangsters immediately backed away. Otherwise, they would be swept to death by Gatling. Unexpectedly, such a ruthless man would take the initiative to talk to the man. He knew that the people here were not good people. Before gaining trust, he didn't want to say too much, but in the next few days, Arnold always stared at the man. He found that the man started to observe everywhere, so he asked if he needed any help. The man certainly didn't want to pay attention, but soon he found that this prison is more secure than the previous ones, is several times higher in security awareness. The guards were rotated almost 24 hours a day. There was no gap at all. It was difficult for one person. So, when Arnold asked him, he no longer refused and said he wanted to go to the isolation room.
Yeah, I really do. Call it a favor.
Okay.
So the next second, the two started to fight. Soon the prison guards came over. Then he successfully reached the isolation room. While he was looking around for loopholes, suddenly, a beam of light shone in, which directly blinded the man. And it was not just a simple light. The device can also heat up. A moment later, it was like a hell of magma, but he still endured the pain and groped on the ground. Sure enough, he found a loophole. A week later, the two returned to the cell again. Arnold was curious about what the man did before, but the man said he wanted to know and help him find a smooth and round metal block. Unexpectedly, as soon as he turned around and left, Arnold quietly told the prison guard. He was soon taken to the warden, but when the warden asked him, he said nothing, saying he wanted to draw it. The warden had to patiently hand him paper and pen, but after drawing for a long time, he only drew. The warden knew he was playing tricks on him, so he immediately asked his men to teach him a lesson. They used a hose to pour water into Arnold's mouth, trying to drown him. I don't know how long it took. He ordered his men to stop. After a while, Arnold suddenly got under the table. He wanted to take the manhole cover of the sewer, which happened to be a smooth and round metal. Seeing the other's miserable state, the man also believed his sincerity. He told the man his identity and the reason for coming here. But he fell into someone's trap. Someone wanted him to stay here forever, but he didn't believe the other person could trap him. This master of escaping from prison, he would definitely escape and find out the mastermind behind this. After observation, he found that the prison was vertically structured and he could hear the sound of flowing water below, so it is likely to be built in some underground cracks or cave. No matter where it is, it will eventually lead to the ground. So as long as he keeps climbing up, there will be an exit. The man said that since there is water below the isolation room, they should use aluminum to make rivets so that it can prevent rust. But they chose steel. This is the loophole. After the steel rusts, if heated, it will expand, and then it will expand and pop out automatically. The metal that Arnold brought back desperately is the key. After polishing it with toothpaste, it can rapidly heat up under light. After discussing the plan, he came to a man in a hat. After greeting each other's mothers, they immediately started fighting. The man took the opportunity, held a piece of bread in his hand. The result is predictable. They were locked in the isolation room again. Although they were prepared, they still had difficulty adapting to. They still had a hard time adapting. The man quickly heated the rivet with a metal block. Under the light, the rivets popped out by themselves quickly. Next, he just needs to continue the previous operation until all the rivets are removed. Then, he put the hidden bread in his mouth, chewed it constantly. Then he tapped the floor to signal Arnold. After getting the instruction, he immediately started barking wildly. To attract the warden's attention, the man took the opportunity to use the sticky bread to block the camera. Next, he can openly open the iron plate and get into the passage, but the defense here is tighter than he imagined. These doors can't be opened at all. He can only climb up the pipe. At this time, the warden on the other side has come to the isolation room. He thought that Arnold couldn't stand the torture in prison and stood quietly here, watching his joke. This gave the man time to escape, but he accidentally broke the cable, causing the water pipe to burst. A large amount of water rushed in instantly, but when he finally climbed up the pipe, he was dumbfounded because the prison wasn't in the so-called crack at all, but on a huge cargo ship. Could he swim back from the sea? This is obviously not realistic. What's more, there were guards guarding it. He had no choice but to turn back. By now, the flood had spread to the isolation room. The warden quickly ordered to take the prisoners back. The man on the other side was still struggling to crawl back. He must return to the isolation room before the guards come in. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Fortunately, he finally climbed back and successfully avoided a crisis. But when the warden came to check, he still found those rivets. His men thought the water pushed them out, but he didn't think so. Back in his office, he made a mysterious phone call. Unexpectedly, the other end of the phone was the man's boss. It turned out that this guy was the mastermind. He wanted the warden to keep him there forever. In this way, all the man's property would be his, while the warden needs reputation. If he can keep the master of escape in prison forever, then here will become the safest prison in the country. His name will be written into history. Countless prisoners will be sent in then. To prevent the man from escaping again, the best way is to make him have no energy to do this. So every night when it's time to go to bed, he would ask the guards to keep knocking on the glass to prevent him from falling asleep peacefully. If he felt a little sleepy, the guards will come and beat him up. Under such daily torture, he can't even stand steadily, let alone do other things. After the guards beat him up, they would send him to the hospital for treatment. After he was cured, they would beat him again, and then it kept repeating. Arnold kept encouraging him to cheer him up. Of course, he would not be defeated. At this time, the other teammates finally found out the man's whereabouts. It was in a sea prison. If he wants to escape from here, he needs to know the location of the cargo ship now. The man knew the doctor in the hospital was very sympathetic. He had asked him about it before, but there were prison guards nearby. He decided to try again, so he asked Arnold to stab him on purpose so that he could be sent to the hospital for treatment. But when the man asked him, the doctor was still very hesitant, because once he said it, he would be in danger, so he had to use plan B. He first asked Arnold to secretly get a pen, and then said, He also needed the glasses of the man behind. The next day, the man brought the glasses, but the man with glasses seemed a little unconvinced. It turned out that he was going to use these tools to make a sextant to measure the direction. But at this moment, a prison guard in the monitoring room sensed something wrong. They found that the two seemed to be plotting something. Soon, the guard nearby received an order and immediately arrested them. Fortunately, Arnold hid the sextant in time. He was locked up alone. The warden wouldn't let him out, and he was not allowed to talk to anyone. He had to eat, drink, use the toilet, and sleep here. He also said he was your fan. The construction of this prison is based on your works. Introduction to prison security vulnerabilities. Let's see if you, the master of escaping, or my sea prison is more powerful. But the next day, the man was released. It's because of pretending to betray Arnold. It turned out that Arnold was the leader of a mysterious organization they are responsible for to hack the world's banking system. Although he was caught, his organization still exists. Now countries have offered high bounties to find his organization. The warden also wants to get the reward. So the two, while passing on some false information about the organization while looking for partners, the bald man who had a conflict before was the best choice. They asked him to pretend to surrender to the warden and betraying his plan to escape, to gain his trust, because they had conflicts before, so the warden would not doubt him at all. The bald man had a habit of praying to the gods, so he used this to ask for a privilege, that he could go to the deck to pray to the sky. In this way, he could use sextant to measure the position based on the measured data and the direction of the toilet's rotation. The man inferred that they were in the northern hemisphere, and it's November now. There was warm air on the sea, and it was so calm, without a single wave. So the cargo ship was probably on the Moroccan coast, although he knew the location. But there is still one condition missing. There must be someone outside to meet them. How to send the message out became a problem. He recalled that, in the doctor's office, there was a book on security vulnerabilities. Obviously, he was his fan. So the man identified himself to the doctor and said he was framed into here. After thinking for a long time, the doctor finally agreed to help him send out the rescue information. Now everything is ready. All that's left is an opportunity. He first asked Baldhead to bring a false message to the warden. When it was bedtime, he deliberately tapped the glass with a pen to attract the warden's attention. This is a Morse code, which was deciphered too. The prisoners would riot in Area C. Meanwhile, the doctor on the other side had already sent out the rescue message. The warden was fooled. Immediately transferred most of the troops to Area C. Seeing the decrease in guards in Area B, they immediately started their action and warned him, "You'd better be right." Soon, the riot began. A large number of prisoners and guards clashed. Seeing this scene, the warden realized that he had been tricked. He quickly recalled all the manpower. The escape team had already taken the opportunity to escape. They only had 11 minutes to reach the deck. To cover their tracks, he ran to cut off the camera. They also put on a smug expression. Now they could act with confidence. The warden was not panicked at all. He just ordered to block all areas. Just as the three climbed up the ladder, they found that the manhole cover was actually an electronic lock, which couldn't be opened. They had no choice but to turn back. But the door here had already been closed. Just then, a large number of prison guards chased after them, and a shootout broke out between the two sides, although they temporarily repelled them. But Baldhead was unfortunately shot. The three had to choose to retreat temporarily. But soon, a large number of prison guards chased after them. The cameras had been removed, while the other side could accurately know their location. He took a closer look. He found that there were motion detectors on the wall, but it was too late to remove it. He knew it's unrealistic for all three to escape in 5 seconds, so he chose to go out through another passage to get out without implicating them. Guangtu decided to stay behind, although Arnold didn't want to leave his companions. But the current situation is the only way, with the desperate cover of the other party. He successfully reached the hatch. Now all he needs to do is wait for the man to go to the engine room to cut off all the switches.
And you see him? Yeah, he's here.
In this way, he successfully cut off all the power, and Arnold had 5 seconds to escape. At this time, the rescue troops on the other side had also arrived. Soon they dealt with the guards on the deck. But immediately, a large number of prison guards rushed out of the cabin. Seeing this, he immediately picked up the Gatling gun, transforming into a T-800. Although people will grow old, but the spirit of the Terminator will never be erased. At this time, the man had already hid in the water tank. This is his escape route. The warden could only shout incompetently from the side, telling him to get out quickly. After the power was restarted, a large amount of water rushed into the man's place. When he realized it, it was too late. The man was successfully washed out. The helicopter also came to pick him up at this time. But the warden was not stupid. He immediately figured out everything and immediately chased after him and started shooting wildly at the man with the support of their firepower. The prison guards were defeated, but the warden still refused to let him. Seeing that he was about to be shot down, he shot through the fuel tank beside him. In this way, he not only successfully escaped the prison, but also killed the culprit. After a life and death struggle, the two finally returned to the shore. Just when the man didn't know how to get back, a SUV drove towards them, but it was the woman from the intelligence agency who got off. She's been the eyes and ears inside the agency. Unexpectedly, they turned out to be father and daughter. The reason why the woman came to him was to rescue her father. So after entering the prison, Arnold took the initiative to talk to him. But there is another problem to solve now. He can't be allowed to remain at large any longer. When his boss wakes up, he was locked in a container where the cargo ship will eventually go is unknown.